Hi guys, it's Froniga. Now I just wanted to do a little disclaimer before the video starts. When I was editing yesterday, and yes, that is Cosmo exercising beside me. When I was going to do upload the video yesterday, I realized it was quite long. Now I had two options. I could cut it all down, or I could put it into part 1 and part 2, which is what I've decided to do. So you will see my second video come up pretty soon after my first. Now, the reason I didn't want to cut any content is because it's a massive process that you go through when you decide to homeschool your children. Not for everybody. Some people know straight away and they don't have to go through any process. But for a lot of us, there is a process involved, and it's important, that process and the journeys we go through to get to our decision to homeschool our kids is important as well. So I didn't want to take anything away from that and not tell you the whole story. So I'm hoping that you will forgive me for having such a long video. The first video is basically my perspective and getting to know the whole story and journey to when we started homeschooling. And the second part of the video is from my kids' perspective and how they feel about homeschooling. So that's really interesting as well. And I kind of do it in an interviewing style with them. So I hope you like the video and please keep watching. Oh, wow. Thank you.
Not to you, to your...
Hi everyone, I'm Froniga and this is Aussies Do Homeschool Season, and today I'm going to be revealing why I left my career as a lawyer and started to homeschool my two beautiful children. So stick around. So last week we spoke all about timetabling or scheduling that curriculum for your homeschool, and if you need more information on that, I'm going to drop a link to that video at the end of this one. Today, however, I'm going to be revealing why I started homeschooling my children. But before I do, if you like this video and you want to see more on my channel, please hit that like and subscribe button down below and the little bell. It will notify you every time I drop a video, which is handy because I drop one every week with a step-by-step guide to homeschooling for beginners. Okay, so why did I start homeschooling my children? Hopefully this is not going to be too much of a long-winded video on the dramas that are my family, but basically before my kids were even born, I had this thought in my head that I was going to do really well in my career. I was going to have enough money to send my kids to a private school. They would start in prep, they would go all the way through to year 12, that's the end of senior school, and then they'd go off to college. They would have lifelong friends and it would all be great. That was what I wanted, or what I thought I wanted for my children, should I say. I thought I wanted that. What happened was that when my daughter was born, she was quite an easy kid. She had massive mood swings, which could really scare you, to be honest. But she was such a little firecracker, but she was such an easy kid. And then my son came along and he stressed me out from the moment he came. He had different things happen. He'd had a stiff neck when he was born. Then at the age of almost 1, he got a very serious infection in one of his knees, and we had to hospitalize him for about a month. So then after that, at the age of 2, he started stuttering, but full on stuttering. He could barely get a word out. And at the time, they say to you, well, you can get therapy, help him with a speech therapist, and it may go away by itself anyway, but if you don't do anything and it doesn't go away, then it might make it worse and he'll have it forever. So of course you go and get therapy for them, even though it might go away by itself. At this stage, my daughter was already in school. She was in prep, and my son was at kindergarten, and every Wednesday we went and did therapy with him. This went on for about a year, and it was quite full on. Now his stuttering came and went just as quickly. We literally went on a holiday, and as we stepped onto the plane, it was like it just disappeared. So, but it did go for a year, and it did stress me out quite a lot, because the poor little thing, it's very hard to see your little child who one moment spoke so beautifully with such a vast vocabulary for a little child, and then all of a sudden can't get out a 3-word sentence. And it would break my heart. At kindergarten, I suppose I didn't really see massive signs, but he didn't quite get along with one of the teachers there, and I suppose this was quite strange because he was such a little tacker. I mean, he's only probably about 4 years of age, and would have these massive meltdowns with one of the teachers there, but not everyone, it was just this one teacher. So I thought it might have been just, I don't know, a conflict of personalities. So I didn't think much of it. But all in all, Sienna was quite easy. She was very compliant at school. She didn't rub the teachers up the wrong way. She did everything she was supposed to, and she kind of coasted along. And I suppose my mind was always more on Hunter and what he was doing, because he was always fighting everything, fighting the system, fighting what he should be doing, or having something wrong with him at any given time that was different to the last thing. You know, the amount of times I ended up in hospital with Hunter was considerably more than my daughter. But at the end of the day, he was, again, another firecracker of a personality. So when Hunter first started school, that's probably when I noticed he was a little bit different to other kids. He would go up and talk to anyone. We could go to the park and he would have a friend within seconds. Whatever age was there, they would make friends with him. But at school, when I would drop him off and they'd have that little play before school started, I'd notice that some of the kids would come up and say, oh, you want to play, pretend planes. And Hunter would quickly sort of, not turn people off, but the kids would quickly sort of move away from him and go and play their game, because Hunter would sit there and just talk. He wanted to talk about anything, usually whatever he was into at that time. So at that stage, I think it was Minecraft. And he would just talk about the characters in Minecraft. And the kids didn't want to talk about the characters in Minecraft. They wanted to go and pretend to be planes, or pretend to be dogs, or whatever else that they were thinking or pretending to be at the time. And Hunter just wanted to talk. So we used to have a joke that, Hunter would always say, oh, I'm so good at making friends, but I find it really hard to keep the mummy. And part of me, that would make my heart break, because everyone else had a friend. Hunter had lots of acquaintances, but he never really had a friend, that one person that you hang out with. And I mean, it was hard, but at the same time, if that one friend didn't come to school for a week, he was fine, because he didn't have one. So he would be fine. He'd just hang out with whoever wanted to hang out. But he did have trouble with the kids at school, and they didn't quite understand him, and I don't think he quite understood them either. And eventually he started to get into trouble a lot. I would get called into the school, not because he was fighting or anything like that, but usually because he was having a meltdown. So if Hunter was not understanding something that was going on, or felt like there had been some sort of unfairness, especially if it was directed at him, he would not take that well. He would usually have some sort of anxiety or some sort of breakdown at school, and then they would call me. So I had to leave work quite often and go and pick him up, or go and talk to him, console him. Usually they wanted me to pick him up, so then I'd have to bring him home. Anyway, and it went on for, I would say, a year and a half. So we're into the middle of year 1, and Hunter was, again, in trouble for something. And he'd gone into the office area, the administration building, and was sitting in the waiting area talking to the lady behind the desk, the administration lady. And luckily for him and me, the lady who organises the Gifted and Talented program at the school happened to be in the room next door and heard him talking to the administration lady, and basically said to me, I think we should test him for giftedness, give him an IQ test. And I said, all right, but I don't really want him to know that that's what he's being tested for, and I'm not going to prep him at all, so you can do it whenever you like. And they did, and then a few weeks later they called me into the office and they showed me his report, and Hunter basically is in the 99th percentile, which means he is on the top 1% of the population. At first I thought, well, this is great. You know, it was sort of like a double-edged sword, because at one moment I'm like, well, okay, there's a reason why he's finding certain emotions hard, or he's not he's not making friends as easily because he is different. And then on the other hand, I knew nothing about giftedness. So I had to research and I had to do all this study about what gifted was. So on the one hand, I was happy because I had an answer for why he was behaving the way he was and how he was with the other children. And then on the other hand, I was worried because I had no idea what to do with this information. And the school wasn't that great at giving it, but they did say that they would put him in the Gifted Intelligent program, and that would give him extension work as well. So that was good, and I thought, okay, well, he's going to get what he needs. He's going to get a bit more enrichment from school, and he might engage more in school because of that. It didn't happen though, because he kept getting into trouble. He kept having problems with other children, and I kept getting called into school. And then in the middle of grade 2, he was having a breakdown, and I remember being called into class, and I came into the class and he was in this back room in tears, like in a little ball in the corner, hyperventilating and just crying uncontrollably, and the teacher sort of standing over him. You know, later on she said, oh, I just wanted to make sure he wasn't going to run off, and all I could think was, why can't you give this poor little child a hug and help them to relax and to breathe? And it broke my heart again. And it was just after that we had parent-teacher interview, and my son's teacher at the time said to me, oh, your son, he's not passing, he's failing grade 2. And I was so angry. They hadn't put him in any of the programs. They told me that he had to show he wanted to do it before they would let him do it. And I said, no, but you need to put him in so he can rise to that and see what it's about and want to do it. But they didn't understand that at all. And I don't think that those gifted and talented programs are set up for children like Hunter. I think they're set up for the kids who are really bright, A+ students. And contrary to popular belief, gifted kids are not always A+ students. A lot of the time, they are the child that goes under the radar or falls out of school or gets lost in the system. They're not what people usually perceive a gifted child to be. And they're a lot of hard work. And there's a lot that goes into looking after these children. But here he is, he's sitting in front of me telling me that my grade 2 child is failing halfway through grade 2. And I was so angry. And at that point I thought, you know what? He's not failing. You are. And that's what I said to him. And I never took Hunter back. That was it. I pulled him out of the school halfway through, and I put him into another local school around the corner. Now, that same year, my daughter was in grade 3. And no, in grade 2 I first noticed her. She started to turn some of her letters around, and I noticed, and numbers, and the teacher said to me at the time, oh, it's quite normal for kids this age, but we'll keep an eye on it. But it never went away. So I started to kind of think that she might be dyslexic, because at home we would read a book and there would be a word on one page, and there's not many pages in these books when they're that age, but there'd be a word on one of the pages, and Sienna would know that word on that page. She would flick the page, the same word would be on the next page, and she didn't know what it was. And at the time, I would get so frustrated, almost angry frustrated, which I just feel horrible about now, because I didn't know what was going on. I thought she was just being lazy. I remember one time there was like a 2-week break, And I thought, all right, we're going to do the alphabet every single day, and I'm going to make sure that she writes everything in the exact way that it's supposed to look. And by the end of the holidays, we'll be fine. And by the end of the holidays, she had it all perfect. She was writing all the letters exactly the way they should look and all the numbers. And I took her back off to school, and within, I think, maybe a week, maybe 2, she was writing them back the front again. And with that, we did a test, and it came back that she was dyslexic. Now, it was probably at this stage, along with my son being pulled out of the same school, that I started to contemplate homeschooling. But I didn't actually start then. It took me another 2 years, I think, to actually start homeschooling. Because I suppose I had this preconceived idea of what I wanted for my kids. And it's hard to break out of that thought process if that's what you've always wanted for your children because you think it's right. That's why I say sometimes it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to move through things, and if they're not working, change them, because the only thing I regret when I started homeschooling was that I didn't do it earlier. Because it would have been much easier for them, and they wouldn't have gone through half the things they went through. So at this stage, I decided that I would take Sienna and Hunter. Well, I'd already taken Hunter out, but then I decided I would take Sienna out. And they went to a little school around the corner from our house that was really great. When we first got there, I spoke at length about Hunter, and we decided together that he would skip the year, 1 year, and he'd be in the same year as my daughter, which did not go down well with her, but it helped. He was a bit more engaged in school. He was learning things that he didn't find as easy, so he got a little bit more into his education. He still had a bit of trouble with the kids, but not as much, so he was fine. Sienna wasn't getting as much help as I would have liked, but there's no programs in the schools for dyslexics. I've noticed I think it's something like 1 in 5 children has dyslexia, and yet there's no programs in the schools, which is quite heartbreaking, really. So it was about that time that Sienna started to get quite anxious. She had always been quite an anxious child. She always needed to be close to me. But it got worse, she was finding it hard. She was always worrying that I wasn't going to pick her up. Every morning I would drop her off and she'd say, "Are you going to be early today?" Now, I was never really late. I think in the whole time they were at primary school, I think I was late maybe once or twice. But that was her biggest fear, that I wasn't going to pick her up in the afternoon. And it got to the point where it was affecting her. So we decided to take her to a psychologist, which helped. It helped with her anxiety. The lady talked her through some of the fears that she had and put in some different exercises that she could do and different thought processes that she could think about to help her through. And it did help. But she still had a bit of anxiety and was still always worried about what other people thought and whether she was doing the right thing or whether, she was good enough. And that started to affect her as well. And she did ask me, I think probably twice, whether she could homeschool. But at the same time, I didn't think I could do it. And that fear, I suppose, in me also stopped me from doing it earlier than I should have or could have. So Sienna was going along compliantly. Hunter was going along okay. But at the same time, they weren't great. Hunter was still having troubles with some of the kids at school, and Sienna was still quite anxious. And in the middle of year 5, again, I went to parent-teacher interviews, and Sienna's teacher said that she was struggling in math and English, and that I probably needed to get her some extra help after school. Now, by this stage, I had 11 years or 9 to 10 years with Hunter of constant something to do with therapy. It was either for speech, pediatricians, psychologists. I had enough. I'd been taking my kids to all these different things, trying to help them with the things that these teachers were saying were wrong with them. And I was tired. couple that with the extracurricular activities that kids do these days, which is a lot, and I just couldn't do it. So when she said, oh, I think Sienna needs more help, I was like, I can't fit that into my day. I don't have enough hours in the day. I was still working and I just couldn't do it. So at that moment, I kind of walked out from that interview thinking, that's it. I'm homeschooling. I'm just doing it myself because I can't rely on other people to help my children the way they need help. I can't pay for any more help. I can't put in any more time to get any more help. I'm just going to do it myself. And I kind of just quit everything. We stopped going to the psychologist. I stopped Hunter, who was also going to a psychologist. We just stopped everything. And I said, that's it. We're going to homeschool. And both my children jumped on board like that. They did not want to go back to school at all. So mid-year through grade 5, that was it. We left and we have not looked back. So I took them both out mid-year and I basically had 3 weeks, I think, of holidays to work out what I was doing. I had no idea. I had this preconceived idea again of what I thought homeschooling looked like, and I was not sure whether I could do it. I just knew that my children needed more than what they were getting in the school system. My children have both turned out to be 2E. That means that they are twice exceptional. Twice exceptional means that not only are they both gifted in different ways, they both have dyslexia in different amounts as well. So I've had a very big learning curve and we've learnt together, but my children are thriving in homeschool. I have that one-on-one opportunity with them that they really needed, because sometimes just because they're gifted doesn't mean that they're going to understand everything within a second. Yes, my son with math, he can probably outdo me with math, but sometimes in English, I need to spend more time with them to really go over something. And with my daughter in math, I need to spend sometimes a lot more time with them to really make sure that they understand that. And in the school system, they couldn't do that. And I don't blame the school system. It's set up for the majority of children. But if you're a little bit outside the square as a child and you need something a little bit more, you're going to find that really hard to get in the school system. And because of that, you're either going to end up disillusioned or just not into it, not wanting to be a part of it because you don't feel like you fit in. And for me, homeschooling has given me the opportunity to really be with my children and really help them where they need to be helped. And what we do, and what I've discovered through a lot of research, especially with dyslexic children, is to really concentrate on their strengths. My son is an amazing mathematician. Put my teeth back in. Mathematician. And he's doing some year 8 mathematics and he's only 10 at the moment. And my daughter is the most amazing artist. And in this time that we've had at school homeschooling, I've really got the opportunity to let them just grow and develop in those areas, which has then given them so much more confidence in their other areas of study, because now they feel like they're achieving, they feel like they're part of the educational system. They're not lost, they're not an outsider. In our school system, they are part of it, and they can flourish in our school system. So for me, homeschool has been all about helping them to find their love of learning again, because they'd lost that. More so my son, his little light had almost gone out when it came to his education, and now I see him, he's right into what he's learning, and he wants to write more. He never wanted to write at all, and now he's writing heaps, and he's into what he's learning, and he's wanting to read. And my daughter's actually kind of liking math. When we first started, she hated math, and now she's kind of liking it. So I think that's a step up. So now, as a homeschooling family, we homeschool 4 days a week, I have to think then. And then the other day, which is a Wednesday, we go to EE, which is Extension Education, and they learn from another teacher. She is a certified teacher. She specializes in gifted children. And I must admit, the first time I went, because there was part of me that was thinking, all these people are saying my child's different, Hunter mainly. He's got these problems with other kids, and you start to doubt yourself. I mean, you know your child better than anyone, but you start to doubt yourself, and you start to sort of question what you think. And when I first went to EE and saw the other children that were all highly gifted as well, Hunter sort of walked in there and it was like, wow, they were all exactly the same as him. It was like he'd found his home, he'd found his kin, his people. And I must admit, that day that I first went in there, I'm pretty sure I cried when I left. Very secretly in my car, but I definitely cried because it was such a relief to know that he was okay. He was normal. He was normal for his kin. And that was really beautiful. And so both of them go there now, and they both have enrichment programs there, and they both do art, and they do everything that they would normally do at school, but it's more geared to gifted children, and they both love it. So we do 4 days a week, we do at home, and then 1 day a week we go and do the gifted program. However, the teacher who runs EE also comes home for half a day a week or 3 hours, 1 day a week on a Tuesday, and just helps me make sure that they're where they should be, and they're learning what they should be in the way that they should be. And she's been a really big help for me. So I don't do it by myself, disclaimer. I do it with the help of a very talented teacher. But we still homeschool, and it's still classified as homeschool. I'm just getting a little bit of help because my children are outside of the box, and sometimes I do need a little bit of help, even if it is mentally. So, if you were to ask me whether it was worth leaving my career and homeschooling my children, I would have to say yes. Was it hard to leave my career? Definitely. I had worked hard to get to where I was. I really wanted to develop as a solicitor. But at the end of the day, my kids came first, and they needed me more than I needed to be a solicitor. And that was more important. So yes, I would do it again in a heartbeat. If I ever do law again, I don't know. I'm always open to anything. Because what I've learned through this whole journey is you can think you're sure of what you want to do and where you think you should be, but at the end of the day, you have to be open to anything, because life has a way of just sort of knocking you for a six when you feel like you're grounded. So I am open for anything, and I'm really happy that I homeschooled, and I think my kids are happy that they're homeschooling. And I hope that we can grow even more as a family, because I've noticed we're a lot more connected as a family now that we're homeschooling. And I've always been close with my kids, but I feel a lot closer now with them, and we talk a lot more. We've got time now. I mean, really, we've got a lot more time. In a sense, we still are crazy. We still do a lot of extracurricular, and we're always doing something. Like, I'm just about to go and do tennis with my daughter, and then I have to come back and drop Hunter at something else. So we are still crazy family like any other family out there, but we're a lot closer, and we have a lot more time to communicate at homeschool and to really get to know my children the way I'd like to. So yes, I'm now going to introduce you to my children, not that you haven't seen them before, but I'm going to give their side of homeschooling and why they feel they wanted to homeschool, because I think it's important to hear from the children as well, not just from me and my perspective,